So Mark, another thing that's been on my mind really is around the capability of the kind of procurement functions in private and public sector, and some of the learnings you would have taken over the years again that of going through a lot of capability building for organisations. What's again stands out is good examples of how you move an organisation from what might be a low capability in procurement to a better capability. What have you kind of seen as good examples of that?
Yeah, I think people 20 years ago would have started with a training course, and that probably would have been at 2 or 3 days in either supplier management, category management, and limited sort of thinking about application. But I think as more people have become aware of the value of learning on the job and 70-20-10 principles, there's much more ability, I think, to have conversations about, well, let's educate these people, great, but then let's also educate line managers, because they need to be coaching people in a more proactive way. And sometimes we've been coaching people once they've been through the training course on actual real projects, so people get to apply thinking much more practically. And I think that makes a massive difference. And there's much more openness, I would say. In the past it was, well, we'll just tick the box, say we've done this training, but not think about the outcomes that you want from it. And the outcomes, they're not going to come straight away without some real hands-on thinking through. If you've got difficult stakeholders, if you haven't got the visibility of business requirements, how do you get hold of this stuff? You need to work with people very closely to get them to think perhaps a little bit more creatively than they have in the past. And that's where the coaching piece, either done by people like us or line managers, is really crucial. And obviously for sustainable capability, you need the line managers to be the people that are playing that role. But if they've not done it before, sometimes it's pretty tricky for them to get into that mindset. So we've done some work with some clients where I think they've done some really interesting work to take that cadre of line managers and really do a sort of combined coaching and technical content in particular key areas, so they feel confident to be able to play that role.
Yeah, you made some really good points there around outcomes-based thinking for capability building versus almost inputs or tick box activity, and trying to derive that sustained, enduring change for people that they feel like they can get on. Do you feel people approach training we're trying to upskill, or do you see it? Do you think they approach it as part of a bigger change journey that they know they're on from your experiences with clients as well?
It can be both. Sometimes it's because there's a new initiative, new CPO, and it's part of that overall transformation of the function, and there's budget available to do it, which is absolutely crucial. And then other times, there's more evolved organisations that know they need to refresh their thinking, and perhaps it's a bit of a jolt to really give some new inspiration to people to start thinking in a more strategic way. Typically, it's usually around that more strategic thinking about what are the outcomes we're trying to drive, and also the relationships that we've got internally. It tends to be in those two dimensions, I think.
Yeah, makes sense. And when it comes to things like budgets as well, like say, training is not always an easily budgeted activity, and demonstrating the return on investment for something like training can sometimes be a challenge. What do you feel? Do you feel resource constraints have become more of an issue over time, or do you think that's changed over the course of experiences with clients as well?
I think there's definitely an unwillingness to commit to incremental value delivery from investing in training. And I can kind of understand that, but sometimes I think there's probably a bigger opportunity if people were to look at it and take a bit more of a risk. And we've had some clients that really, in the public sector, to be honest, who put a lot of money into building capability and reorientating their teams. But training and capability building is right at the heart of it. Without that, there's no sustainable. It's not like bringing some consultants in and getting a quick hit on savings. We're trying to build an enduring capability in the team itself. Now that means some people can get upskill. Other people, perhaps they need to be shifted into different roles, the more sourcing related roles, which still need a lot of skill, obviously, to conduct those activities. So yeah, it can be both. But I think budget wise, it's probably still where it was, but everybody recognises it's a key component of a transformation.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that resource constraint, like you say, with with the mobility of people within the function, if they're changing from one role to another, that's normally a more conscious exercise now, especially with more digital kind of automation of tasks and activities. Do you feel like that's changed the way that capability is seen? Because you were mentioning that category management and supply management might have been the first kind of parts of a capability building approach, but do you think other capabilities have now been infusing because of that sort of digital pressure and workforce pressure? And
I think there's definitely one around being more analytical and being able to be, I was speaking to once FTSE top 20 organisation. They were training everybody in using some of their data analytics tools, so that the category managers got a better understanding of the profile of, in this case, global information. So putting some emphasis on that is definitely, it empowers people. So again, that excuse of, well, we can't get the data, you can get enough of the data to get started. And yes, sometimes you'll need to still do some manual stuff to go and find invoices and build up cost profiles in a more, I would say, less digital way. But there's definitely still a need, and that's an area I've seen some focus in organisations because it's got an immediate payback.
Yeah. What kind of shifts have you seen on the behavioural side of things? A lot more. If category and supply management and some of the more technical elements of those kind of areas have been tried and tested and repeated, what have you seen kind of move forward in the behavioural space?
Well, we've seen definitely, what's worked really well for us over at least 15 years is threading behavioural skills into technical training courses on supply management, category management. Yeah. So doing sessions on those, and they always go down really well. We always get massively positive feedback on those. And I think now there's clients that are saying, actually, we'll do the technical piece and keep it fairly clean and do that within a certain time frame. But then let's focus separately on the behavioural piece, because they recognise they're recruiting on behavioural competencies primarily. And yes, there is an aspect of making sure people can do the technical roles that they expect. But you will find sometimes people think they've recruited people from blue chips who can do, for example, category and supplier management, and then find it's not quite as good, and maybe that organisation wasn't doing it in quite the same way. So never forget the technical aspect, but primarily at the moment, a lot of focus on building up behavioural skills, standing in the shoes of stakeholders, really, listening skills and testing and influencing skills. Definitely part of what people are looking at. Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's a really good point about the blending of the technical skills with the behavioural skills. That has a bigger impact on people who are going through that upskilling journey or changing skills of sorts, being able to thread it together, because sometimes it can be a bit generic if it's just behavioural on its own, and they might have gone through their own courses. So have you seen that blend has kind of raised it a level for people?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a recognition in leadership teams, where they see the challenges, which is around that engagement of working with business partners across the organisation, and having a team that you feel you can trust to go and do the job as well as they would do. I've heard that phrase a number of times. I kind of feel like I need to be there alongside these people, because they don't watch the body language, they don't listen maybe quite as closely to what the stakeholders are saying, and some of that stuff is really, really important, and you can teach some of it. And I think there's a greater recognition that you can build those skills, as well as getting them in the right sort of profile when you recruit people.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you find that self-awareness plays a role in some of that as well? Because I imagine that people who go through more behavioural upskilling and training have to be more self-reflective of what their current behaviours are and how they need to move up. Is that something that you've seen in kind of change capability building programs as well? More assessment around that.
We did some work with a behavioural skills organisation of consulting, nothing to do with procurement, but they focused on that. And it was interesting looking at some of the way they profiled the skills, and one of the areas was all around the self, really, and how you manage yourself, your resilience, your ability to, like you say, reflect and to listen to feedback. And that's not about just trying to tactically engage stakeholders. That's really understanding how you influence people and have a more impactful role.
Yeah. And there's this adage that kind of always springs to mind with me around behavioural skills and procurement, that a lot of people just default that procurement's about negotiation or negotiation skills. And you've got to be a really good negotiator to be in procurement. But it feels like the behavioural dimensions have changed a lot for procurement professionals beyond negotiation. But is that your reflection as well?
I think so. The idea of co-creation, collaboration, both with stakeholders and with suppliers, that's much more to the fore. Whereas the old, view of negotiation is it's typically adversarial, and of course, there's different flavours of negotiation depending on the contractual situation. So I think there's a broader recognition, but I would say it's more definitely around collaboration and co-creation than it was.
Great point.